Here are the top 10 fantastic tips that you need to know.
Lila, let's talk.
I'm gonna give you like real examples of exactly what I do when looking for a property. Just to give you some background about myself, I have like a regular job, so you could say this is like my side hustle, and it wasn't, meant to be that way, but I bought a house when I was 25, and you can see this video here. Since then, I have purchased 2 other homes, and now I have 3 properties. 2 of them are long-term rental properties, and 1 is an Airbnb. So if you have any questions about anything, make sure you add some comments. But this video is really specific on once you kind of gone through the qualification process, what are some of the things that you really need to look out for when actually picking the house or the property? Because it's a huge decision to make. So let's go over the top steps that you really need to know. Step 1 is you need to see what you qualify for. This video will show you a little bit more about that. Second, regardless if you're buying as your first home, you want to have an investor's mindset and ask yourself, how long do I want to live in this space? A lot of times people are discouraged to buy because they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I'm going to be in this area for a while, or I'm not sure if I want to be, stuck on having this huge, debt, even though it's good debt. Don't get overworked or overwhelmed. Just figure out, okay, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 15 years. What's your game plan? And the reason why that's important is because that will kind of help you determine if this is going to be just an investment and you're going to have to be able to rent it out quickly, or if you want to flip. So 3 is you want to make sure you identify at least 3 to 4 cities, 3 to 4 zip codes, 3 to 4 neighborhoods. You want to have an idea what kind of neighborhoods are thriving. You want to be able to compare different neighborhoods, and you don't want to just go off of what you like. You really want to have data drive your decisions as much as possible. And so I think being able to have the ability to compare different cities, different neighborhoods, different subdivisions is going to be really key. But you first got to start somewhere. And I think saying 10 or saying 20, that's going to take forever. So I think 3 to 4 is kind of a realistic number to kind of start. 4, and I think this is really key, and I think a lot of people don't do this, is do your research. And when I say research, I mean research everything. And I think one of the biggest things, whether you're going to live there, whether you're going to rent it out, or whether you're trying to flip, is look at the city plans. Every single city in America, they're always willing and they always kind of communicate what the future is for that area. So whether it's a new shopping mall, if it's a new town center, if it's a new highway, if it's a new pedestrian bridge, which, I'll talk about as far as my situation. I also look in the newspapers. What are the newspapers saying? Where are they saying is a hot spot? Because I'll tell you, Georgetown in D.C. used to be like the poshest place. Everyone wanted to live there. West End, which is near the Watergate. These are all places that people kind of always had a very high regard for. But nowadays, people who are young with money, whether they want to buy or live, has shifted to other areas in the neighborhood. So don't try to hold on to some of your assumptions that you have, whether you're from there or whether you live in a different city, you've heard of something else. Really take the time to do your due diligence and see what's hot, not just now, but what's going to be hot in the next 5, 10, even 15 years. I looked at different neighborhoods in DC, and again, there's suburbs and there's also the city, but I'm based in DC, and so I looked at Deanwood, I looked at Capitol Hill, I looked at Anacostia. I looked at places that are really relatively close to like the core downtown area, because that's like super, chic and expensive and, very desirable, not just people who are visiting, who are tourists, but also people who live in the area. So that was kind of the hub. And then I started looking at areas around it. And I said, okay, well, what can I afford that's kind of around this area? And then I started saying, okay, well, what's going on in St. Elizabeth? What are they doing? Oh, okay, they're going to convert the old mental institute into a town center. Great. When is that happening? What time frame is that happening? How long is that going to take? Has it gotten funding? As far as what I was interested, I was more gravitated towards Anacostia. And they're doing a variety of different projects. I was really attracted to the fact of the pedestrian bridge. It's the 11th Street pedestrian bridge. Basically going to merge different demographics, different restaurants, different interests, different types of people through this, I think, very luxurious bridge, because it's going to have, as you can see here,
contemporary and iconic, the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge will take its rightful place among the beautiful arched bridges of Washington, D.C. The shared use path on the bridge will extend the Riverwalk and seamlessly connect both sides of the river.
It's going to be entertainment. There's going to be a lot of people, visiting. It's going to have performing arts. It's a place where people can gather. So I really look at places like this, places like Anacostia River. There's a park, places where people want to enjoy their weekends. And so based on all these different areas, based on what's close to the metro, something that is relatively walkable, I decided to go to Anacostia. After I did my research on the city plans, I also looked at the crime report. And this is all public information that you can go, and there's huge databases. Here's the one for DC. And as you can see, you can categorize it based on the type of crime. So whether it's theft, whether it's violent or non-violent, you can also look and have a heat map on, whether it's red, green, yellow, right? So red is like, wow, there's a lot of crime there. That's something that you probably don't want to invest in. Yellow is like, okay, kind of moderate here and there. Green is relatively safe, like it's a low crime threshold. And so I like to look at that depending on, regardless if I'm gonna live there or rent it out. I'm not a slumlord. I wanna make sure that if I'm gonna rent out a property, it's a place that I would wanna live myself. And that's kind of the quality mindset that I have for my tenants. 5 is you want to research house trends, and you can look at this at whether it's Zillow, whether it's Zip Realty, whether it's, what are the other ones?
Redfin.
Whether it's Redfin, you can see in there, what are the home purchases for those homes in a particular area based on the zip code, right? So you go to a house, let's say there's a house that you like, you can look and see the radius of, okay, within 5-mile radius, what has been sold in the last 30 days, 60 days, right? So a lot of agents think that you have to go to them and get the MLS report, but you can actually get this in, all these public sites, and you can see for yourself, okay, what has been selling, what has the price been, how much has homes been sold in this particular area, and that will give you a sense of where the trend is at. And what I like to do is I don't just, get up and say, oh, you know what, I want to buy a home today and I'm going to go and look online. It's a process. You got to make sure that you're really thoughtful and strategic. So I might say, you know what, it's 6 months out. I know I want to buy in the spring. I want to buy in the summer. I want to buy in the winter, right? And if I have that in mind, I might start just saving some things. I might just start saving homes that I liked, whether I visited them or not, just so I can have my own kind of catalog of the market analysis of what's going on. 6, which I think this is like the fun part. It could even be like a little date if you really want to, which is start to visit all these properties, start to visit these homes, whether it's 3 to 4 different neighborhoods, as I mentioned before. Yeah, just start going to open houses, and you don't need an agent for that. Yeah, actually, it's all publicly available. It'll say Saturdays and Sundays from 12 to 5, right? And just go and look around. And why is that important? It's because you want to get an idea of what's your preference as far as the layout. You also want to have a reference point to see, okay, am I going to flip this home? Am I going to live in this home? Or am I going to invest in this home? Tip number 7, have to figure out if this is going to be a turnkey or is this a fixer-upper? If you want turnkey, that's pretty much gonna be golden, everything's done, you can't make any modifications. Well, you could, but it'll probably be really expensive. Most people usually want turnkey. You kind of have to figure out, well, how far does your money go? In fact, that's actually what I do. I go and I look at the houses that nobody wants. I go look at the houses that have mold. I go look at the houses that smell, that are falling apart, because those things are going to deter most people. And you're not even boggling down with your agent. And that's another video I think I'm probably gonna do regarding the relationship and the expectations you should have for an agent. No one is going to find a house and put the amount of work that is needed besides you. Agents are great, even the most experienced ones, especially the ones who are most experienced. They're really busy. They probably wanna, focus their time on like their $1 million investors. And so you really gotta take some accountability and find the house that works for you, right? So go out, make yourself aware of the market. And then not only are you helping yourself, but then you can actually ask your agent really intelligent questions that will help you further along your decision making and make better decisions. Now it's 8. I like to look at the hot spots and then about a mile or two outside of that hotspot, right? Because I'm thinking, especially in DC, we have a cap where buildings cannot be built higher than the monument. I know, right? So what happens is it creates this really tight bubble as far as with the demand, where you can only buy a certain amount of square footage in a particular area. You can't go up. It is what it is. So you have to say, okay, well, there's a neighborhood, let's say the Navy Yard. And that's exactly what I did. I said, okay, the Navy Yard, wow. It has transformed. If you looked at the Navy Yard 20, 25 years ago, it was a little, a little scary, a little, different than it is now. And I was like, wow, that really took off. That was a great blueprint for what's gonna happen in the surrounding neighborhood. So I said, okay, cool. So that's the Navy Yard. What other neighborhoods are around the Navy Yard? Because that's always gonna expand, right? Neighborhoods that are in new development, they start out small and then they start expanding. And that's what I started looking at. I said, okay, let me look across the bridge. Okay, great, Anacostia. It's across the bridge. It's really close to the Navy Yard. It has water access. It has access to the highway. There's so many articles and trends that show it, moving forward. And granted, I bought my first property there in 2016. At the time, it's, of course, if you look now and you start researching Anacostia, you're like, oh yeah, of course, that's hot. Everyone knows that. No, everyone did not know that. In fact, I got a lot of naysayers and saying, ha ha ha, why are you going there? That's a waste of money. You don't know what you're talking about. But I listen to people who know what they're talking about. I listen to experienced investors in the neighborhood, not just the neighborhood, in DC. I sought their advice, and you can seek people not just, in person, but even on YouTube and the experts. I wouldn't consider myself an expert, but I do know a little bit about this from my personal experience. So that's kind of another thing that I looked at was, areas that have recently boomed. And I'm like, okay, let me find other neighborhoods or subdivisions that are close to it, because it's only a matter of time until that flourishment of homes that have been developed there will kind of expand to other areas. So this next tip number 9, is looking at different highways, looking at the access points. So even though, let's say, like DC is like a walking town in a way, our metro isn't the best, but you want to see, like, okay, if someone has a car, how far is these different destinations to where you live or where you want to buy? Are your tenants going to be attracted to this area? So these are all the different things that you might want to consider. Most listings, they will have a walkability score. And so typically 0.90 is something where you're able to access, whether it's the metro, a bus, or there's shopping centers, there's things that you're able to easily access from a close distance. So 100% is like right next door, which isn't the case. I think a high score is 0.90. 0.80 is also relatively good. But when you start getting to like 0.40, 0.50, that's more of like suburbs as far as the distance of like a couple miles away from the metro. Yeah, you might find a house that's like perfectly, in your price point, but it's like super far away from everything. And if you're trying to rent it or if you're trying to flip it, how attractive is that? You want to pick locations that are in desirable areas, movie centers, shopping centers, and particularly in the city, close to subways, public transportation. 10. The last tip number 10, that a lot of people don't do, I actually will go to the neighborhood, and this is usually something that I do as soon as I've honed in on one neighborhood. I will not just look at that neighborhood, I'll start walking block by block. And I will do this. I actually did this for, I would say for 3 months. Every Sunday afternoon, I would go to a desirable neighborhood that I was looking at, and I will park my car and I'll wear like casual clothes like I am today. And it's always great to have a friend with you because you never know the situation of that neighborhood. But anyways, I would just walk around and just get a sense of, do I feel safe? How's the vibe? How are the neighbors? And it's amazing how you notice things. You notice the landscaping, you notice people's cars, you notice how people keep up the maintenance of the home. That says a lot, because if you're seeing a lot of development, right? So if I'm walking around the neighborhood, but I notice, wow, there's a lot of construction in this neighborhood. There's something going on. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of activity. In fact, I was going so often, I kept getting my flat tires because there's so many nails in this neighborhood because the construction was just booming. I mean, it's not even just homes that were booming, even like reforming schools or like adding clinics and hospitals. These are all like infrastructure things that are happening that the city's trying to build up. These are all signals like bing, 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 bing that should be going in your mind like, okay, development time, things are happening, and if you can, it's always best to just see it for yourself. So I would highly recommend that you go to the neighborhood and really invest in the neighborhood. You know, there's this whole idea about gentrification. I would encourage you, especially if you're going to underdeveloped communities, to get to know the people, get to know ways that you can kind of give back to that neighborhood. And what better way than to kind of spending more time there? Go to the smoothie shop. Turning Natural is, you know, one popular place, or We Act Radio, or Busboys and Poets. These are all places that have, you know, recently been added to the neighborhood. And go there and see, like, how do you like it? What's the vibe like? What's the energy like? It can also give you some insight to your agent, and you can just go off of your gut and see what works for you. Please make sure that you add your comments, you add your questions. If you have anything to add, if you want to correct me, there's something that you know that I don't, please add that as well. This is kind of a space that I hope can be very collaborative and we can share and learn from each other. So thank you so much for checking out my videos. If you like this video, make sure that you subscribe, hit the like button, check out the playlist, and, you know, support Lila Talks, because I can talk about all sorts of things. But if you like real estate, give me that feedback and let me know, and I will be sure to make more real estate videos that are of your interest. Bye.